What was the worst decision you saw someone else make? When I was about 7 years old, I was in the car with my parents, going across the bridge from Niagara Falls, Ontario to Niagara Falls, New York. The deadly Niagara River is right below. There was quite a wait due to traffic, so we were pretty much stopped. A bunch of teenagers were goofing around, hopping out of their car and play fighting, etc. One guy hopped up on the railing of the bridge and did a handstand. It was terrifying. His friends yelled at him and he hopped down. Then he did it again and fell over the railing to his death. Yeah. I could see that sticking with you a long time. 30 years later, I still dream about it sometimes. My family is from Buffalo, New York. My uncle visited the falls a few years back and saw a lady fall in. They had fenced off some parts that are normally accessible because of increased water flow or something like that. And the lady disregarded this, slipped, and fell in. The worst part though is that she actually managed to get up, out of the river, onto a bit of debris or a part of the water-covered path that was somehow accessible. I'm not sure, I wasn't there. She got there and stood up, and everyone watching called for her to stay where she was and wait for a rescue. She didn't listen. She fumbled around, tried to climb on the debris back to shore and slipped and fell back in. Her head was above water all the way to the edge of the falls, and my uncle and other onlookers saw her face, eyes wide open and terrified, right as she went over. She didn't make it. That will never leave him. Marry a drug dealer. They are both in jail now. Probably going to prison. I'm all about recreational drug use, and the right to choose what you do with your own life. But Jesus, really? How did she think this would end? A friend signed with a professional sports organization at 18 years old for $1.2 million and spent 95% of it on junk without put any of it into an investment fund. What kind of junk? Leased a car that was $4,000 a month. I know a guy who went to a D1 college on a full-ride baseball scholarship, was on a number of sport television shows as someone to watch coming up, decided that selling drugs was a better route. Now he lives in a small apartment with 8 people, still selling drugs after multiple arrests. I had a friend ask another friend to shoot him with a blow dart. First the guy shot him in the leg, but my friend thought that was too easy. He was an overly confident Marine Reserve, so he asked him to shoot him in the side. The guy did and it punctured his lung, though he wouldn't admit it. Then, trying to play it cool, he decided to go home, when really he was going to the hospital. We all followed him to his car trying to convince him to let one of us drive or call an ambulance, but he just kept saying nothing was wrong. He collapsed right as he unlocked his car and we had to call 911. He's fine, aside from his injured ego and dimwits. Was in Yosemite doing a hike up to the top of, I think, Vernal Falls. Some kid from a large church group decided to swim at the top in the, seemingly but not really, calm water at the top. I saw him get swept away and taken over the edge. The water has been running over there for thousands of years, so the rocks are smooth and there's no vegetation. There's literally nothing to grab a hold of if it happened to you. Was not in the mood to see a kid die that day. Read the signs and please stay the hell out of the water like you're told. Edit for even more grim details. The body wasn't found that day. Or the next. Or the next. I spoke to a ranger and he said that sometimes they don't get to retrieve the body until the summer, when the falls have dried up. This is because often the bodies get stuck in a current and thrown around in one area at the bottom like they're in a washing machine. It's impossible to get to or even see them. I have no idea what's left of them after months of that. So, stay well clear. Watched someone quit their $20 per hour job, blow through $25K of savings, get ripped off trying to restore a Honda from '80s, that's where the $25K went, lose all their friends, default on all credit cards, lose their luxury condo, move in with their grandpa, get kicked out by their grandpa, move in with their dad and stepmom, get new job for minimum wage at their dad's work. Why did all these things happen, you might ask? Severe fear of growing up. Not speculation, that's literally his reasoning. Edit. Also, this was 10 years ago and right out of high school for those questioning whether or not 20 per hour is anything. Sounds like his parents sheltered him too much and he doesn't know he has what it takes to deal with life. Opposite problem, they divorced when he was like 8 and they played the, I don't want custody game. My friend on why he proposed to his controlling, angry girlfriend of 5 miserable years. I did it so she would stop asking. Wedding is in 3 months. Dude, you need to save this guy's life. Do what you can to break him out of it. He needs to understand that this girl will make the rest of his life miserable. I convinced him to break up with her 3 times. Each time she just cried and refused to leave, so he took it back. I don't think anything can change until he learns to say no, unfortunately. I went to a party with a friend and she smoked meth. I worked in retail in college and met her there. She was really nice and we had the same sense of humor. After a few weeks she invited me to a house party in the middle of nowhere and it was all dudes in their 30s. She was dating one of them, and we were like the only girls. I wanted to leave right away because not only were the people weird but the house was weird too, like there were no outlet covers on the outlets, and barely any furniture, but there was a stripper pole in the living room. She drove and convinced me to stay for one drink. When I got back from the kitchen with a beer she asked me if I wanted to smoke meth. She actually called it something else but I didn't understand and only figured it out after she started explaining it to me. I declined and then watched kind of in shock as she started to smoke it while her boyfriend started telling me that it wasn't as bad as people think. I ended up calling my boyfriend to come get me and walking to the main road to wait for him because I really didn't want to be near that house. The next time I saw her at work she told me that a few hours after I had left a guy who had been punched at the party had called the cops and she had been too afraid to go back to her car after running from the house, so she had spent the whole night just walking around in the nearby woods. I quit 2 months later and never saw her again, but my friend who continued to work there told me a few months after the girl was fired for smoking meth in the bathroom at work. My cousin dropped a full-ride baseball scholarship at a college in a town he grew up wanting to move to for a girl he started dating his senior year of high school. She was 2 years younger than him. He went to a state school instead that's 40 minutes from his hometown. She cheated on him and they broke up not long after school started. Ouch. My high school math teacher is probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. One thing he said to someone in our class was, "Never go to a certain college for a girl." Come to find out he had passed up some ridiculous full-ride Ivy League scholarship to stay with his high school girlfriend. Then she broke up with him about 6 months after they got to college. Either that, or he was trying to teach a bunch of 16-year-olds a lesson. Hard to say. A woman married my ex-husband after she witnessed him snapping my wrist like a twig, carrying on an affair with him for a year of our marriage, and knowing full well he was an addict. It was like watching a train wreck. I had to keep repeating to myself that it wasn't my problem. My dad watched his best friend for 35 years drink himself into an alcoholic, essentially ruining his own life. They were drinking buddies for a long time, but my dad began to suspect he had a problem and tried to shake him out of it and quit drinking himself to avoid encouraging him to drink. His best friend's eventual DUIs and increasingly protective wife led to a strain on his relationship with my dad and anyone else he knew from high school and college. Now his wife won't let anybody talk to him ever again. My dad misses him greatly and won't stop telling stories about the antics they used to get up to when they were kids, always addressing him as uncle. In the last few years we used to see each other. They started out in the sandbox at age 2 and eventually broke loose in their 30s. Always late to the party, so I'm sure nobody will see this, but when I was a criminal prosecutor, one of my coworkers had a robbery with a battery case that was pretty much a purse snatching with physical contact. The victim was elderly and was the only witness, and it all happened so fast and yada yada. It was going to be a tough case to prove, but the guy's record was bad and the prosecutor knew it was this guy and was not going to drop the case. And Mr. Robber fancied himself a savvy criminal, thought he could beat the case completely and was not going to accept any plea. Prosecutor ended up offered disorderly conduct, a misdemeanor, and the time he'd already served in jail. It's the absolute lowest offer she could have made in good faith. Mind you, Mr. Robber had a terrible history, so there was no point to him preserving a clean criminal history or anything. Sure, you could say that he was trying to assert his honest innocence, but we knew from some inadmissible evidence that it was definitely him. On jury selection day everyone assumed Mr. Robber would plea out, get out of jail, get McDonald's and go home to his family. I was there on another case. Well, he didn't plea out. He said, basically, ready for trial, do your worst. Now, I was a prosecutor and this guy was a bad guy, but I wanted to jump up and yell, take the deal, you moron. I just could not imagine taking the risk he was taking. We are talking years of prison on the line. It made me seriously uncomfortable that someone could be so stupid and hard-headed. I think he thought that if he said ready for trial the state would have to acknowledge that the case was tough to prove and drop it. Madam Prosecutor did not drop it. She was a fantastic prosecutor. She presented the evidence available clearly and concisely. Old lady victim was just a gem on the stand. She was confident and engendered sympathy and never ever came across as anything but 100% believable. The other evidence corroborated her story as much as possible. The jury came back guilty in 30 minutes. Now Mr. Robber has 8 years in prison to ponder how wrong it went when he tried to keep it real. I know a guy who was supposedly recruited to be part of Vancouver Symphony Orchestra not even out of high school. Saw his girlfriend dance with another guy at graduation and in a fit of drunken jealousy punched a brick wall and shattered a dozen bones in his hand, never played an instrument again. He should have just punched the guy in the face to soften the blow. I can't say for sure, it's been close to 15 years now, but I'm pretty sure they were just friends, kind of the girl next door relationship. They grew up together, basically family. Maybe something was going on, but if it was, I'd wager it was one-sided on his side, as last I heard musician and girl got married and are still happily married. My best friend was marrying a girl just because they had a kid together. Everything was working out fine between them as friends, and their daughter, though only 3, seemed happy as well. Then they started to be friends with benefits and began dating again. Out of nowhere they announced that they were getting married. Everyone knew this was a bad idea considering their history and that marriage shouldn't be a thing you just try one day. Anyway, the wedding day comes and it's your typical affair. Church, priest, gown, flower girl, cake, etc. It was an uncomfortable experience for us as his friends since we felt it wasn't set to last between the two of them. We didn't know how right we were. 2 months in and they're fighting almost every night. He tells me that anything will trigger a fight between them. One night it comes to a head when their fighting becomes physical. She shoves him, he shoves back, she punches him in the chin, he hits her in the left eye hard. Problem is she's petite and only 5 feet tall, meanwhile he's a 6 feet 3 inches former bodybuilder. She ended up calling the cops and having him arrested. She now has full custody of their daughter and he spent 3 weeks in jail over the whole thing. So much for giving marriage a try. Definitely not self-defense unless he was in fear of immediate death or bodily harm. Your friend just wanted immediate revenge. That's what dumb people do. Being punched in the face makes most people fear bodily harm. A girl I dated for a few years broke up with me for a heroin addict/dealer. I told her, "This is going to ruin your life." It's been almost 10 years and I think she's finally staying clean, but she lost a decent job and had some run-ins with cops, plus got pregnant between stints in rehab. Sounds like you dodged a bullet. Right? The worst part was probably that all of our friends were like, "Oh, he's a pretty nice guy," and I was like, no, he's a terrible human being. Didn't take long before I was doing the told you so dance. The decision, not going to work or calling in after getting into a fight with her ex-boyfriend who worked there. The consequences: 1, got written up by the manager, her mom, leading to a fight between them. 2, the fight led to get quitting her job, moving out of her house and moving in with a guy she'd known for like 2 weeks who was the reason she broke up with prior ex. 3, dropped out of college because she no longer had a way to get there. 4, lost all her savings because she was paying all the rent on this guy's 1-bedroom apartment that they shared with his mom and his brother as well. 5, got pregnant by this guy but he ended up breaking up with her because she may have cheated on him, details still unclear. 6, she moves back home and starts dating a convicted felon who's 7 years older than her, she was 20. 7, she has her baby, her mom's boyfriend offers free childcare, she goes back to work, hey, things are looking up. 8, her mom's boyfriend lets the kid watch too much TV, her mom disapproves of the convict she's dating. Another fight, she moves out again to live with the convict. 9, she gets pregnant again 6 months after her first baby is born. 10, quits her job because she can't pay for childcare. 11, she's just fucking miserable now and we don't talk anymore. It's worth noting that immediately before this happened she'd stayed with me for a week and told my mom that my life was going to fall apart because I chose to take a gap year before I went to college. Edit, words, but I typed this whole thing while I was drunk. I'm really proud of myself. In retrospect, I probably should have used my throwaway account. Was 2 grades under this girl that was graduating in less than a month. She was brilliant and had amazing grades, but she dropped out to become a manager at a Hungry Jack's, Australia. She ended up getting demoted after a few months because they transferred a new manager in that had 20 years experience. She could have easily baked the cake and ate it as well, but to this day, I can't understand why she would just drop out like that. Her parents were pissed. Edit, this was high school. Sorry, I didn't realize I didn't add that in. This goddamn loser friend of mine was so desperate for attention when we were drinking, coupled with his douchebag competitive attitude that's always on. He told this cute girl/mutual friend of ours to dare him to drink as much of the bottle of vodka as possible in one go. She was confused because those are some stupid words that came out of his mouth. She said, Huh. Okay. What am I agreeing to? He drank like 80% of a huge bottle of vodka straight in like 10 seconds, in a desperate attempt to impress this girl so maybe she'd be so turned on by his willingness to do everything she says that maybe she'd fuck him. Instead, he got yelled at for being fucking stupid, threw up for like 6 hours, and cried for the rest of the night. I felt bad, but he's a god-awful friend who lost my friendship, so I laugh about it now. I'm 100% certain that he's going to die either drunk, in his car going 120 on some road somewhere, or both. A girl I know spent $50,000 on a wedding for a marriage that lasted 6 months. Was watching Adam Ruins Everything earlier and it said that couples that spend more on weddings are more likely to end in divorce later down the road. Found that interesting. Turning to alcohol to feel good. My friend really likes to get drunk because he says it feels good and he enjoys it. Long story short, since he has become a university student he has started excessive drinking every day when he knows that he can have a hangover the next day. That's up to 4 days a week. On a regular basis. Don't get me wrong, it's not just a couple of beers. A full bottle of hard liquor every single one of those days. He drinks alone and most of the time until he just blacks out. He hides his behavior when he is at home visiting his family. And he has ignored every warning because he knows the danger of becoming an alcoholic from a case in his family. Saw a guy eat roadkill as part of a dare. Hospitalized for 3 weeks for infection that led to vomiting, that Maxilon wouldn't work and that led to a hernia which led to sepsis. Only eat roadkill you've seen get hit. I had an ancient professor at college who said he would mark roadkill so he knew which ones were safe to eat. He drove home to the next state over on Fridays and would mark the dead ones with paint or something. That way he knew which ones were fresh on the return trip Sunday, and he could take those home and eat them. Edit, this was when he was in college, he said, so I'm thinking the late 40s or so. I'm friends with an accountant I'll call Sam. His job was as an accountant, but he was also really good at obtaining funding and grants for various research activities that the company was conducting. It was an American company with a branch in Canada. The company had never accessed these grants until they hired Sam. Sam had previously spent years working for the federal government as an accountant managing these programs, and he knew exactly how and where to apply for funding. He literally obtained enough money every year to pay the entire branch's annual budget twice over. The company hires this new branch manager and he's an absolute jackass. It's a small office and there's no real HR presence. He's harassing Sam and makes jokes about his appearance, overweight, bookish. Finally, after he's been there 2 months, he lays Sam off with a statement that, "We have enough accountants, there's no work for you." Within an hour, Sam has been snapped up by a competitor, and has a severance package to boot. Another few months go by and it's tax season. We find out from Sam's former co-workers that the American head office is calling. They want to know the final dollar amount they'll be receiving in grants for the year. The new boss has no clue what they're talking about. He then tries to find someone who can do the funding applications at the last minute and he can't. Most consultants take a percentage cut and it takes months to assemble the details. My bookish friend Sam makes him beg and then Sam tells him where he can shove it. The branch closed shortly afterwards and everyone was out of a job. My great aunt decided to leave her husband, for whatever reason, and start dating someone else before her and her husband had legally divorced. Sometime later there was a confrontation between the husband and the boyfriend which ended in the boyfriend shooting her husband in the head. Needless to say, he was dead before the police arrived. The husband was probably one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. I never did hear why they decided to separate in the first place. Girlfriend married a guy she knew was struggling with alcohol. He also was just a trashy guy I never cared for, and I always thought she could do better. The drinking was the worst of it though. Fortunately, she was able to get out before he got physically abusive or any kids entered the picture. 27-year-old ex-boyfriend slept with a 14-year-old girl. She loves me, he said. Her parents decide to take him to court. They knew about the relationship the whole time, decide to take him to court when they found out she was pregnant, terminated the baby. She goes back on everything she said to him. She's 14, remember, he realizes he's been had, pleads guilty, gets 3 months in jail and can never go back to the town she lives in. Will forever be labeled as a S offender because he thought for some reason a 14-year girl, who he knew slept around a lot with other people before him, loved him and spoke to his soul. Side note. Her mom saw me a while back. She's pregnant again at 15, but the parents are excited this time. I avoid them at all costs. Edit, I don't blame her at all. I highlight her age, because my ex repeatedly told me she loved him and they were meant to be and blah blah. He was convinced, and it was absolutely disgusting and somewhat amusing when she just flipped the page and moved on. He was like, but she said she'd be on my side in court. Not the worst, but close. Our English teacher told us about this incident that happened a few years ago. He went to this beach with his family, but it was high tide, the warning flags were up and everything, so they couldn't swim. This lady comes along and lets her 3 kids go into the water. He tries to stop them and tell her it was high tide, but she wouldn't listen and the kids go into the water anyway. Of course, the worst comes to pass and the kids are drowning. My English teacher and a few other men swim out and save the kids, while fighting against the tide. When all the kids were saved, he gave the woman a proper scolding. He is a teacher after all. He says it still terrifies him to think what would have happened if the tide had been any stronger. A longtime friend of mine just invited a 20-year-old girl from a small Texas town to come live with him after only knowing her for a couple of months in a long-distance hookup kind of way. He's 29, makes good money, owns a house, etc. Normally, one wouldn't have any issues except she's got a 2-year-old son who she will bring with her when they live together. He has never been around kids before and doesn't know a thing about taking care of one. She's definitely a potential gold digger. And he's desperate, lonely, and wants instant gratification. She isn't even divorced yet and doesn't have custody worked out with her soon-to-be ex-husband. Where my friend lives and where she is from is about a 4-hour drive. This shit is going to blow up in his face. My brother did something pretty similar to this in his early 20s. Met a girl at a bar when he was traveling, took her to bed that same night. She'd had a kid at 16, dropped out of school, had no job or drive to get one. Sounded like a real winner. They date long distance for a few months, never living in the same state or spending more than a weekend at a time together, when they get the bright idea to elope. I thought this girl was taking my brother to hell in a handbasket. He was super successful for an early 20s guy, owned his own house, had a great career, and had so much good ahead of him. I couldn't understand why he did this. I thought he was running his life. But guess what, they are still going strong and I actually like the girl and her son. They've turned out to be a great little family. There was one incident in my hometown that made me want to tear my hair out. A family moved in a few years ago. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl. The mother was looking for work as a teacher, but there was no opening, so she worked as an aide. My mother was on the school board at the time, and she noticed that parents were complaining about the lady as she was apparently ignoring students and favoring others, getting angry when her children got bad grades from the other teachers, etc. Mom invited her to the next school board meeting to discuss the situation, and the lady went nuts. The conversation broke down into screaming, and the lady swore she would take Mom's spot on the board. Sure enough, when election sign-ups went up online, she was the only person who ran against Mom. After months of an attempted smear campaign, Mom won the election with more than 200 votes. The lady only got 5, all from her extended family. So what does the lady do? She decides to pull both of her children out of public school as she doesn't want them corrupted by the teachers and the board. The son was a senior in high school, months away from graduation, and the daughter was in middle school. My sister was in her class, and she said the daughter screamed and kicked her mom as she dragged her out of the classroom to check her out, begging her not to do it. She left all of her stuff in her locker, and the school had to send it to them. When Mom heard the news, she was horrified and tried to talk to the family, but the father had been browbeaten by his wife and refused to put the kids back in public. It's been a couple of years since then. The mom homeschooled the kids, but the son works in the oil field and is trying to get his GED. The daughter is a complete rebel and has been arrested numerous times for drunk driving and vandalism. But the mom still has the audacity to act smug whenever someone runs into her at the grocery store. At least my children know how to live in the real world. Sure, Kathy, keep telling yourself that when you have to bail your kid out from jail. Edit, I know Reddit is pretty passionate about children, but wow, this blew up on me. For the record, yes, her name is actually Kathy. I believe she pulled them out as a way to get back at my mom, as she was her enemy since she didn't get a teaching job or her spot on the board, so she blamed her for everything. Mom didn't hate her in the slightest, but was very upset that she did this to her kids, who didn't do anything wrong. Both kids were under 18, so the son couldn't just go back on his own.